Reminder, this is the pre-agenda. We're going to walk through the city council agenda and have options for the city council to ask questions of staff, go through those issues. We've got a couple presentations. Tonight's meeting starting with a public hearing. Typically when we have public hearings, we have the action item immediately following the public hearing. Because the public hearing tonight is specifically related to the potential vacation of Williams Drive. Basically, that Williams Drive is for all practical purposes, it's just a paper street. There hasn't been any homes on that for some time. But before we vacate the street, we want to, you take action, if that's the direction you're going to go, to take action to accept a utility easement, because there are some utilities in that street. And then we would want you to accept a right-of-way easement for Williams Drive to be moved, and then finally to vacate Williams Drive on the plat map. Because we don't want to vacate the street without accepting a right-of-way for another one at a different location. So we will have the public hearing on that, and then we'll ask you to take action relative to approving the utility easement, accepting a right-of-way easement for Williams Drive, and then vacating the current Williams Drive. Trish, do you want to speak to that anymore?
Oops, said it pretty clear.
Okay. And this is, Williams Drive is the only abutting properties to Williams Drive is all one owner, and this vacation is being done at the request of that owner. So there's nobody else on Williams Drive that has access to their property.
A normal vacation, we could split half of the easement on each side, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, they get it all because they have the property.
Right.
All around.
But we'll still have the utility easement where the utilities are.
So does that remove Williams Drive completely then? I mean, does it kind of erase the road and the new one's built and the new name, or?
It erases the existing Williams Drive. The new right-of-way will be there, but won't have a road on it. But will be, a road could be built at a later date. And arguably, the road could change names. Could. Ultimately, that's a city council decision. If and when a street is built there, that would be the final say on that would be the city council. Any other questions on that process? Okay, then under presentations, Kevin, you're going to present the personnel budget. All this personnel. 2027.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you know, throughout the summer and early fall, we give you proposed budgets piecemeal, little section by section. So we're starting that off today with the 2027 proposed payroll budget. Over the next few meetings, we'll get into some of the other areas such as capital improvements and then general funds and special revenue funds, utility funds, debt service funds, all that fun stuff. As you can see in your packet, I included a few pages for you. Just to remind us all, we're in a 3-year contract cycle with the unions. 2026 is year 2 of 3, so next year will be year 3 of 3 for all union contracts. And so the amounts of the COLA and step increases, all that has been negotiated. So that makes the payroll budget a little easier to prepare because we have some more known facts in some years. You can see on there the total wages and benefits proposed is $8.145 million in 2027. The increase right now is about 4.14% to the general fund, almost 5% overall citywide. This compares to the previous year, which was about 10% to the general fund and about 9% overall. So it's about cut in half from what the increase was. What the increase was this year. And I gave a few reasons for that. Some of those reasons include there's no election, so we won't have to pay election workers, at least not that we know of in 2027. We have more employees on single covers instead of family, so that saves the city some money. And some employees in the past year have hit the maximum step, so they'll only be getting a COLA, cost of living increase, and not a step, so that will save the city some money as well. Those are some of the reasons that the increase is 5% overall, 4.14% to the general fund. Any questions on any of these 4 pages in your packet?
It seems like police was a big one, a $124,000 increase. Is that just the COLA and benefits, or is that,
Yeah, there's no new employees, no new anything else. It is a big number, but that's because the number starting is so big.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's you can see the total percentage is 3.51% for police. It's actually a smaller percentage increase than some of the other departments. Good question. Any other questions?
And then can you just remind how you proportion, like a maintenance worker, some of their salary goes towards streets, and then would some go towards sewer and water, depending on what they do at different times of the year?
Yeah, the bulk of public works is streets and a little bit of parks. And then Paul has a couple employees, and he can speak to this, that mainly work in the water sewer department. And so those couple employees are pretty much primarily all to water and sewer and a little bit of stormwater. So almost all public works is streets, parks, but there's a couple that are in the proprietary funds, the water and sewer funds.
All right, thanks.
Just, again, to point out is that there are no proposed new positions in 2027. One that we've talked about and are concerned about as we look forward is probably the biggest area of potential need is in the area of park maintenance in the public works. So we have been considering that possibility as we look forward beyond this year. We're not proposing any new positions in the 2027 budget. The other thing is, this is assuming that there's no election as well. So. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Kevin. Next, under updates or presentations, is just wanted to give you an update on the Charter Commission. Basically, I just want to, this is kind of the current status, and as we look forward into the next month or so. The deadline for submitting names to the court is 5 o'clock on July 2nd. People then have the option to object to any of those names until July 14th at 5 o'clock. And then on the 17th at 8:30 in the morning, there's a virtual public hearing on any of those objections, and then also the procedure to appoint 7 members to that commission. To date, 9 have been submitted by the court by the petitioners. We've had people inquire the city about, if I want to be on the Charter Commission, what process do I use? We've told people at this point if they can simply submit their names and their information to us, and at some point in time, I would imagine by late this week, we will submit the names that we've received to date to the courts as well. And to date, within the last week, we've had about 11 people apply and submit their application. So we'll submit that to the court from there. At some point in time, then, I don't know if the city council is going to want to make recommendations to that. We don't have a regularly scheduled meeting prior to July 2nd. We do have a work session on the 22nd, but again, that feels a little bit early prior to the deadline. So if the city council wanted to do that, we would either have to call a special meeting, or you could delegate that to a couple of the mayor and a council member or something like that if you wanted.
Could we discuss it at the special meeting next week?
You could.
Even though it's early?
Yes.
At least come up with a or call to figure it out, or think about it a little bit between now and then.
I would be surprised if we don't get a few more, this week and the next, or that we get a few more before July 2nd, or if the courts receive them directly. But like I said, we're going to submit the names that we have to date. We're going to try to do it by the end of the week.
I don't know other counselors, but I'm interested in it, and I was ready to send my paperwork to Gunner to meet the old deadline, and then shortly there, right before I did it, we got the notification of the extension, so I was, eventually I'll submit my paperwork, but I have an interest in doing it as well.
And I'll jump in a little bit here. Is Greg Rosenberg here? So Greg has been working, there's two ways you can start a charter commission in the city. You can petition, or you can have the city council start, or the court can do it. But there's been a petition, and that's been started by voters. And that process is started. The court is going to appoint a charter commission, and there's going to be 7 members on it. The petitioners have submitted a number of names. They're kind of the initial 7 members, and then some more have been petitioned. I think it's really important for the city council and the city to be involved in this process. I think of if I'm going to have, let's say my knee went bad and I was going to get a new knee installed, I want to go to a doctor that understands putting in artificial knees. We have a city council and an administration that understands and has been working with this form of government that we have in Hermantown for many, many years. And I've been talking to the mayor and John Geisler, and both of them, have a lot. They're probably the most experienced of our city councilors and mayor. They bring a lot of background into Hermantown's form of government, how the city operates, how things work within the city, and that expertise, I think, is going to be critical as this charter commission group puts together a charter for the city. And the charters, it's a charter, it's like a constitution, or it's a working document of how the city is going to work. I've worked with charter commission cities before. I like them. There's nothing wrong with it. But the key is to get a good charter. Nothing against the group that's put together the petition, but they have not worked, except for Jackie, who's worked within the city. They're not as familiar with the operation of the city, and there's choices that can be made in this charter process. So I think it's important that the city council especially and the city have some role in that process. I doubt that the court's going to appoint 7 members of the city council to that, but there's going to be some representation, and we're going to work through this. And like I said, the key in the end is to get a good charter that will work for the city of Hermantown. I don't know if the voters are going to vote it in or not, but I want to make sure that the city gets the best charter that they can if it is then approved and goes forward. And so we now have some timelines that are going to come up on us fairly quickly. I would agree with Mr. Mulder that, and we don't have to have a vote, but there can be kind of a consensus that so far it's been Mr. Geisler and the mayor that have been kind of taking the lead on this. And it would be helpful to have them kind of be the consensus, kind of delegated the oversight of this from the council to them, and they can kind of work, because there's going to be some decisions made about how many people do we put forward, how do we put it forward, how do we talk to it. And it would be helpful to have kind of informal people delegated to help lead with that process. And so that would be my ask. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. I don't have all the answers on how exactly to do this, but I want to make sure that the community is represented, but also the city and the expertise, because the city council is the elected body that represents the city, and has that information and experience about how the city works. So That's my 2 cents.
On the last paperwork you sent, this court document, it said that there were changing judges from Judge Sullivan, or from Judge Byers to Judge Sullivan. You know, any reason, or just workload, or?
It's a workload. This process falls to the chief judge of the district. She can delegate the work out to other judges, and that's what she's doing for that hearing. But ultimately, she's the one that's going to make the decision. We also had the opportunity to have some conversations with the people that brought the petition and talk a little bit about their thoughts on this too, if that's something they're interested in. But again, it helps to have a representative of the city council to kind of be involved in that discussion.
Thank you.
Then if there's any other questions or comments?
Well, I guess I'd just like to make one quick note. I know I haven't seen really anything publicly about how to even apply to be a charter commissioner. There hasn't been a ton of information that I've seen about the switch and what that means. I know we have 2 applicants, and maybe they could use their 3 minutes to tell the city what they're doing.
If they want to, yes, they could do that. We'll do that at the regular meeting.
Yeah, I know, just that.
Okay, moving on to the regular agenda. It's June, so we approve or deny liquor licenses, and you have the list of them there. A couple of them to be aware of. Mackenzie's is we're waiting for some paperwork. What was the one that I wanted to point out to?
Second from the bottom.
The Minnesota C-Store, there was a potential change of ownership there.
No, that's Foster's. Foster's is the owners.
Yeah, Foster's is the one that is like, they're trying to change that to, and as you recall, we approved the liquor license for the Hermantown Tavern, but that deal hasn't been cut through yet. If the deal doesn't happen before July 1, Foster's going to be able to continue to operate.
So, one of them will,
Either Foster or the Hermantown Tavern will operate there.
okay.
So wasn't there a change of one of them to another name?
Joe's Quick Marts went away, is what,
Yes.
and became the Minnesota C-Store.
Right. On the original agenda, that's the one that I was trying to think of. On the original agenda, Joe's Quick Mart was on there, and that came up because this would be the Minnesota C-Store on Haynes Road. That's at Haynes and Hermantown Road. And then you have the annual temporary service area for the Beacon Sports Bar for Summerfest. Then under consent agenda, you have the minutes and accounts payable. Then in resolutions, you have 67 is established an absentee ballot board for the 2026 primary and general elections. This is something that we do every year. One of the questions that comes up is that there's some staff on there. Staff is on there because we need to have people that are going to work through those absentee ballot boards, absentee ballots as they come in on a regular basis during the early voting period.
So is absentee both mail and the early voting?
Of course, this clerk was here. I don't know that answer. Off the top of my head.
And then we will appoint other election judges for the primary and in person,
Yes.
other than this list.
This is just for the absentee ballot board. Resolution 68 is approving a grant application for, between FEMA and the city, for the fire department's radios. Zach, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, sir. So our 2026 FEMA grants were applied for. Last year, we applied for portable radios and mobile radios for our trucks and base stations. This year, we are only applying for portables because they're high priority. The other two are medium, and they talked with our regional rep last week. If you put a medium priority, your application is going to be set aside. They're only doing high priority, so we're doing just portable radios this year. They're on the 2027 capital improvement plan, so we're hoping to get these and at least save the city $380,000. There's a 5% match. So if we're selected, we'll be paying about $20,000 for the radios. Then we'll worry about mobiles and base stations at a later date. Any questions?
Resolution 69 is an annual resolution that we do adopting performance measures. We do this in two parts. One, it's just a good idea to do the community survey and we'll try to measure our performances in various ways. But the other part of it is also, there is a incentive on the part of the state of Minnesota for some local government aid. To be honest, it's a very small amount, but again, it's, in my view, the performance measures are just a good thing for us to do. And Joe leads that effort, and so maybe you want to just talk about the results. Because we just finished up the survey today.
Yep, and we'll finish up crunching the numbers in concert with League of Minnesota Cities. We've talked about this in years past. This is our 8th consecutive year of doing it. We always wish we had more folks fill out the surveys. We did a handful more this year, but not a dramatic different number than we've had in the past. And reflected in the numbers themselves, we haven't had any dramatic changes in our year-over-year numbers. The newest piece, which captures the last 8 years of data, you'll be able to see, we'll post that in many places online tomorrow. You can see that we've had some movement over the years in areas of focus, such as roads and parks, and other areas where we're known as one of the most excellent communities in the state of Minnesota, like areas like public safety, people with our police and fire. We continue to score numbers more than 90%.
Any questions on that? Included in the packet this afternoon that went out was those results and some of the comparisons to past years as well. Resolution 70 is a resolution approving Northwest Partners as the city's insurance broker. As you recall, we've been with Northwest Partners for a number of years. As you recall, last year there was talk about giving the local agents an option to represent the city. So earlier this month, end of May, we went out for proposals for insurance brokers. We sent it to our current broker, but we also sent it to agents in the area that were doing work with the League of Minnesota Cities, because we get a vast majority of our insurance through the league. We did get 2 proposals back. One was from Northwest Partners, the other was from a Reliable Agency, and we had 2 proposals. One, Northwest Partners reduced their rate to a flat fee of $15,000 per year and agreed to hold that constant for 5 years. Reliable presented a commission, which was a percentage based upon the premiums, and if no increase in the premiums, the charge would be just under $20,000. Our recommendation, based upon the fact that Northwest was going to be cheaper, was to go with Northwest They've worked with the city for a number of years. They have done a good job for us, so that was our recommendation.
Based on my professional relationship with one of the bidders, I'm going to excuse myself from voting and any discussion, so. just a thought.
How was Northwest Partners, prior to this year's flat rate of 15,000, how did Northwest Partners propose in the past, a percentage?
Yeah, prior to this year, they had a percentage of of the premiums as a commission. Last year's cost was, thought we had this in the proposal, in the information, was about $30,000. So basically, they cut their fee in half.
Something bothers me about this, that we get a proposal now, and we open it up to a local agent, it's half of what it was last year. And the local agent looks at what our contracted bid was last year to base his bid this year. And I would like to go with the local bidder, but the $5,000 difference is a lot of money. But it also has me question, how much have we been overpaying up until now? It just doesn't seem right.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the reason why you go out for proposals, is to get everybody to sharpen their pencil. We've been with Northwest Partners
Is
10 years.
there any way we can table this and look into it? Is it 2-week delay or a 3-week delay on the bid?
My recommendation is you make a decision tonight, one way or the other, because our policy year is July 21st, and so we need to get the agent going and starting working on the renewal.
I'd like to see us use the local business for them. And by local, I mean in Hermantown.
Yeah.
They pay taxes here, they're very involved in the community. I think $5,000 out of a $10 million budget is well worth the money to keep it local.
I was going to say, is it worth that difference, or?
To me it is. I also think, when I was reading, I saw that the contract is negotiable, so I'd be interested to know if they're willing to come down their commission a little bit.
Two things about that. One is, two things about this in general. One is, we recommended 5 years. That's not to say you couldn't say, okay, we're going to do this for a shorter time period. The second one is, when we say that an RFP is negotiable, is that we can work out the details of that. There's a certain amount of danger in to say, okay, here's a request for proposals, give us your best offer. And then it's like, oh, well, now that I know the other person's offer, my offer can be better. And so, they're X, I'll be X minus $1. Well, then you start to the other side, well, I'll be X minus $2. And so the idea of the request proposal is give us your best proposal. And again, that's not to say we couldn't do some negotiations. Hey, wait a second, we asked for this service, we want to cut that service out. Will you reduce your proposal, something like that? So as you work through those proposals, you can do some negotiations. I think there's a real danger, and I don't think there's a precedent we want to start, where it's like, give us your best proposal, now we're going to negotiate. I think everybody's numbers are starting negotiating that way.
Sounds like a good way to save some money.
Well, it just shows that, yeah, we already save money by putting out an RFP. We can look at it that way.
Maybe cut it in half.
Right. If we were to say it's worth us to spend the extra $5,000, we're still going to save money.
We're still saving $10,000.
Because of the process that we did.
And just so we are all on the same page, the 5,000, assuming there's a 0% insurance increase, which has never happened, we always have a 5 to 10% increase. So it's not going to be, there'll be more than a $5,000 increase. For example, if you did a 5% increase over the life of the 5 years, we're talking about a $40,000 increase to go with the local bid versus the current bid.
And, yeah.
And you think the current contractors at Northland, North Risk, sorry, you think if you're talking about an increase of potentially, what, 50% over the next 5 years, you think they're gonna stay at that flat rate, they're not gonna come back to us?
They'll stay. They sign it.
Yeah, I get they have to, but it seems kind of fishy to me that as soon as, because I know Reliable wanted to bid on this over the last 2 years, were unable to, and then all of a sudden, once there was a bid to have, just at Dwayne's point, all of a sudden, Northwest was able to cut theirs down by half.
And go to a flat rate instead of a percentage. Have they been a percentage for the last 10 years?
I believe so, and they asked me, both companies asked me which we preferred. I said, that's up to you if you want to do flat rate or percentage. It's your RFP, you do whatever you want. So I didn't go in any direction, and one went with one, and one went with the other method. We do know our work comp mod has gone up a lot, so our work comp's gonna jump next year, which isn't good news, but it is what it is.
In the past, have we been multi-year contracts with the agent? Or not, probably, we were just kind of renewing every year, right?
We have got up for proposals on the insurance agent for some time.
You had said it's not good practice to go back and see if they could beat that other one, but could we go back to them and say, to Kevin's point, the insurance is probably never going to be less, so the delta right now is X. Would you fix your fee at whatever it is today for 5 years?
Yeah, again, if you wanted to go, two things, whether you wanted to go either way with either proposal, you could very well say, wait a second, we don't want to do 5 years, we want to do a shorter time period. And then you could also go back and say, okay, we want the local one, but we want you to convert this to a flat fee, or we want to, on some assurances that it won't increase by certain percentages, whether the insurance increases by, 10% or 20% or whatever. Okay, so the insurance is going to go up 10%, but we'll hold our fee to, something less than the full 5% on the increase.
Well, we've got a guaranteed number for 5 years versus a variable number. It can't go up. And I don't like the results. I wish that there was a way to work on this. I'd rather give it to the local person, but we also have to look at saving the taxpayers money.
How much work is it for staff to switch carriers for agents, I guess it would be?
It'd be a lot of work initially, because there's a lot of city assets that all need to be vetted and gotten over to the new insurance agent. I don't know about the claim side. I assume, just like switching computer providers, there's always going to be work involved in that too. But we are under a little time crunch right now with the year starting soon. So like Mr. Mulder said, we can do a 1-year deal with either one of them, or the same one and come back, or I don't know. I do agree with Mr. Mulder that a decision would be nice tonight, because we're getting down to the last few weeks before renewal.
And Mayor, what I would suggest is that if the issue is kind of like, okay, we want to be local, but we're concerned about the disparity in cost, is then go with the local, but then say, let's talk about this for 2 years, and let's try to negotiate, what that second year is. Or even what that rate structure might look like that way. I mean, again, I understand that. I mean, and the conversations I had is like, several years ago, we went out for RFP with an attorney. And I said, I don't want to hire an attorney in the Twin Cities. I want to hire an attorney that is here and could respond, fairly quickly. I don't think that's the same as true for some other providers that we have, in terms of insurance. But it's like, I get the idea of wanting to use the local providers. I can understand that. And it's like, to me, it's like, okay, And there's a certain amount of Northwest knew that that was part of the issue, right? So it's like, okay, well, they're not gonna move here, but they want to keep our business, they would, do that. So then, if you want to go with local, then let's do the local, and let's limit it to 2 years, and let's try to work out that relationship so that we have a greater comfort level with that relative to the other. It's called political science, but it's really more art.
I like that.
Can we vote on it tonight, or is it?
Yes, you can still vote.
If you change the contract languages, is there any guarantee that Reliable or Northwest would accept that? I guess you're changing the duration of the contract, right?
Yes,
That's the negotiable part.
yes.
We're negotiating without the other side. We're
Well-
negotiating for you.
You just tell them, say, sorry, we're not entering a 5-year deal, we're entering it 2. If you don't like it, we'll go back to the other one and accept the proposal.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
So the motion,
So what does the motion have to look like then?
Resolution approving reliable insurance as city insurance broker for a 2-year contract.
John, you writing that down?
I'm writing it down, sure. And you will abstain. You will be here.
Maybe you just abstain, you got it.
Well, it's cleaner than judging.
It's better if he doesn't participate in the discussion, even if he's just sitting there.
Okay, resolution 71, as you recall, we did
Go get him.
Welcome to Resolution 2026-71. As you recall, last meeting you had 2 mediated settlements relative to the assessment on Hermantown Road. Based upon that, you asked us to change the assessment so that the assessment for all of the parcels on that road were the same. So this resolution amends the original assessment roll and it reduces the assessment to $4,700. Kind of the mechanics of that is that if they have paid the original assessment of $9,400, they would be reimbursed half of that, and we would cut a check to them. There's maybe 20 people that way. And then if they put it on their taxes, and that in 2026, they will have started paying it. So in May, they paid the first half. Later this year, they'll pay their second half. And what we would, the amount that we have listed here is if they pay both both halves of their assessment this year, that will reduce $4,700 from that full payment. So in fact, there's no interest being charged in this first year. That would reduce the assessment to the number that we have listed here. And then, based upon that, residents could come in and again, not finance it on their taxes, but pay it in full by the end of the year and not pay any interest on that. Or they could put it on their taxes and then it would be amortized over 14 years, the remaining years left on the original assessment. This does not cover any of the people that were in the settlements. There is a number of people on one of the settlements that will want it to continue to pay over the remaining amount and we treat them the same way. You pay the full assessment this year as if it was $9,400, but you get that without any interest penalty. It all goes to principal, and then the assessment is reduced to $4,700, and that amount is taken off of that. And again, just as kind of a process question, is that what we did was, again, reduced it to $37,6352. That's the amount remaining after they pay the first year's worth. And then we would send a notice, similar to what we do when we do a normal assessment, is that you're hereby notice that we've amended the assessment roll. Your assessment is $37,63.52. You can pay that within a year and have it paid off, or you can amortize it over 14 years.
Thank you.
Any question about that? Because we assumed that we were going to be financing the original amount of $940,000, we had exactly 100 properties that were assessed. That amended amount now is $470,000, and so we'll need to do debt service on that additional $4,700, because we spent the money.
How much?
$470,000, sorry. And so the debt service on that amount is, we're estimating that is about $51,000 for 14 years. So we're going to make a transfer from the general fund to the debt service fund for this project in that amount.
Just the 1 year's worth.
Just that 1 year.
And then moving forward, it'll be on the,
Well, so moving forward, you could just leave that amount in the general fund and make the transfer, or you could increase the debt service levy by $51,000. But in fact, $51,000 is about a 0.5% increase in the property tax levy.
Those 0.5% add up.
They do.
So every taxpayer in Hermantown is going to be paying for that.
An additional 0.5%.
and that's just the one project.
That's for that one project. And we'll talk more about that as we talk about, so we're scheduled for a work session next week, Monday, on the 22nd. And we're going to walk through that assessment policy and whether or not, what changes, if any, you want to make as we look forward into the next, 5 years. So this just makes the necessary transfer for that $470,000. Any questions about that? And then that's the end of business for tonight.
Scheduling, I've got 29th for
Yeah, I know that we talked about different 22nd or 29th. Because I went back and looked, that's what's on my calendar is the 22nd. We just scheduled all the fourth Mondays. And then we also went back and said, okay, what did I communicate to the council back in December? My memo also said the 22nd. So
Somebody sent me a calendar invite, so I have the 22nd. I do, yeah, you have 29th? I have the 29th.
I can do 22nd or 29th. You tell me what works for you.
I can't do the 22nd.
You tell me.
Let's do the 29th.
I'm out of town 29th, but
I can do either one, I just gotta.
Say.
I'm
So we're either Sans Wayne or Sans Andy.
probably better go with the mayor. 29th?
At 4:30.
4:30.
Yes.
I have 4:30 on the 22nd, so. We probably better synchronize our calendars after
Well, I'm curious now because it shows up on the 22nd for me.
Yeah, and for me too.
Joe, who sent yours? Does it say when you click on the meeting?
What it's got, Hermantown
It
City.
didn't come from me because it's not on my calendar. It's on the 29th. Well, that's one of those things where it's like, it's the last, is it the last Monday or is it the fourth Monday?
So anyways, it's going to be the 29th.
The 29th. Okay. Mayor, anything else?
Chief, are we having a national night out this year?
We are.
August 4th?
Well, I read my list, the whole page, so we got time. I have some data center questions. At the last meeting during public comment and maybe during the discussion on the what did we do last week with the
Urban services.
with the urban services, there was some discussion about other data center projects in the city of Hermantown, and I'm just wondering if there's been any other petitioners or folks coming to visit with us about that.
We have no applications and we have not been in discussions with any other data center.
Okay, that's awesome, thank you.
People will cite that there was an inquiry about the property off of Maple Grove Road. Someone inquired about that, and we said, no, it doesn't fit with our plan.
Thanks. Also, there's been a lot of discussion at a lot of meetings about we're going to get handed to us a water sewer service that we can't afford to maintain. I briefly mentioned it last week that long-term maintenance costs for water and sewer are handled by the enterprise funds, and I was talking to Mr. Balf about that, and he said that he's done a kind of a quick study or sketch working with Paul to look at how that we will collect our water and sewer money and appropriate that into these enterprise funds, and he had some figures, and I'm wondering in the next, it doesn't have to be next meeting, but sometime in the near future that Mr. Balf kind of gives us a presentation on that, or
Yeah,
somebody does.
David could not be here. He has done some of that work. Do you want to just kind of give a preliminary, easy answer, and then David can expound on that at a later meeting?
The easiest answer is David is excited to expound upon that.
And that's fine, again, I just, yeah.
We talked about it, we talked about the concept of pipes recently at the public information meeting, Stephen Road, and David, was reminding some residents on that. The concept of water and sewer pipes in the ground, and water especially, is really a century proposition. And he was reminding me in the text and that we have no dollars spent on any new utilities put in the ground for at least 15 years. And he'll dial that number in a little bit more closely the next 3
But
weeks.
during that whole time, we are collecting and funding the enterprise funds
Yes.
with money to do that at some point.
Yeah, and he's got some expectations on what this particular project could bring in on that I know that he's looking forward to sharing in 3 weeks that can dispel a lot of the worries that we stuck funding a pipe, because those numbers are pretty considerable and will be coming in for the project, and pretty small in terms of the maintenance even after year 15 and all of that. So.
All right, perfect. Yeah, look forward to that presentation. We got the notice, press release from Joe about the next open period for the AUAR, and I guess I'd like to know what, beyond the next steps of the AUAR, and then I was wondering if we could have a council work session on that, or at some pre-agenda. I mean, there's a whole lot of pages to read there, and I know I'm going to have some questions. And is somebody from Kimley Horn available, or Ron, or how can we deal with that in the next?
Yeah, we were talking about the possibility of a council work session in July on the issue of the data center and some of those other issues.
And what been explained, or maybe Eric, or after this 15-day period, then what happens? And
Yeah, Eric, can you kind of talk about that process?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mulder and Councilor Geisler. So starting tomorrow, it starts the 30-day process of the draft AUR. So comments run through, I believe it's 4 p.m. on July 16th. So similar to what we did in large scoping document that people can send their comments to, we have a website email specifically set up for AUR comments. They can also send them to me. We compile all of those, and what we do through the process is then we give those comments to both Ron and to Kimley Horn, so they have an opportunity to review those as the whole process runs through. There's some questions, there's some concerns from the public. Last time is this, gosh, how do people process all these comments in basically a week's time? No, they receive these as we get these in. So they're not looking at them all in the course of a couple of days. They're looking at them through this entirety of the 30, basically almost 45 days as it starts to goes forward.
And then what, after that period, and then it's the final AUAR?
Lights are hot tonight. Yes, that's correct. So basically then we get into the final AUAR process that basically runs through August. And we anticipate early September that it would basically wrap up that AUAR process. So it continues to be continues to be opportunities for the public to input, and then as we reach the tail end of that, it actually is like a 10-day period for actual governmental agencies to comment on that as well. So this document will come before council at least one other time as it goes through the whole process that way. But I'm anticipating this process going through July, August, and early September.
At some point, somebody from Kimley Horn or Ron or both would be here for any questions that the council might have, or how does that work?
Yeah, we can coordinate that, yes.
Okay. And then we were told before that Google/Morrison is scheduling a meeting for June 24th. Has there been any more information about that or notification of that process?
So my understanding is that a mailer should hit every mailbox in Hermantown probably this week for that meeting on the 24th.
I guess this would be a question for Gunnar. If the city councilors show up as, more than three or more than two, do we need to publicly advertise for that, or not necessarily, since there will be no official business?
We don't have to publicly advertise for that. If you all show up for a concert or a ball game, that's not a public meeting. If the public meeting comes so you guys can take in information, but you're not discussing it as a public. So that's not an issue.
Perfect. Okay, that's the end of my data center thoughts. Birch Hills, we talked a while back about kind of pausing with our putting that neighborhood plan together. I had asked a question about possibly subdividing and looking at selling larger lots. I think there was some loose discussion about that, but I don't know that anything has happened, and I guess I'm just wondering if we can try to make that happen. And if we're not going to do anything with it, to me, we should look at getting rid of that asset.
Yeah, so right now it's paused, and in terms of further action, so we can bring that back to the city council and tell us which way you want to go.
And I think in working with Rick Ranchetti on it, the pause is just background work, but I think the biggest piece is what the feel is after the trail's constructed. The primary driver of the original purchase was to make sure that we could make that happen. So potentially give us the time and space to see if we feel differently collectively once that asset is through.
I would still like to look at the possibility of doing larger lots, access off of Johnson and Morris Thomas, just to see how it would work, and if the appetite was there to, how many lots and...
Not larger, just actual lots that the city allows.
Right. Yeah. Or try to sell it. With that trail thought that Joe mentioned, that's my next question, is that we have a contractor there, but it's supposed to be done, and I confirmed with Mr. Ball, they're supposed to be done by August 1st, and they haven't started yet this year. I'm concerned that they're gonna say, we need more time, and in my mind, they shouldn't get any more time, because they could have been in there right after the road limit, so
Well, that's not completely true.
no?
Because the trout streams are holding some of their work up. They can't really work it within the bridges and crossings, there's only certain time windows that they can work in, so that does hold them up some.
Okay.
But they committed to the August 1st date when they bid the project?
That's what the contract says, but if that bridge thing is something unknown and potential, but they could have been working between Johnson and Morris Thomas.
Which they have done some, and they drilled late into the fall, winter, whatever you want to look at that with the rock.
Okay.
They did work. It was cold when they brought the drillers back in last winter, so.
Well, I just see that they'll have a claim for added time, and maybe it's rightly so and deserved, but we have to, August 1st is right around the corner.
And they did request to try to work in the wintertime and cross then, and that they were denied.
By the DNR?
Yes.
All right, well. Next topic is Fickner Park. I hadn't been there really much since the concrete was put in last fall. I walked around there a couple weeks ago, and it really looks nice. I think that was a great value that what we did there. But it also reminded me of the playground surface. I know there was nobody's happy with that playground surface, and I walked particularly around the merry-go-round. It was quite soft there, and so I don't know if, I think that needs to be, I don't know if anybody, is that David's contract?
David's been in contact with, I can't remember the manufacturer or the installer, I'm sorry.
Flagship?
He's been back and forth with them, some, where it's at in the exact process, I can tell you.
All right.
He has been in contact with them. They have been up here on site a month ago, give or take, something like that.
All right, well, maybe we could get a report on that. And then the other thing, when you were talking about maintenance, it reminded me too, we had talked loosely about maybe looking at some volunteer maintenance of that park, whether it's, right now, I think the Baseball Association does that, right?
Correct.
I was thinking more like a adopt a park type of a thing, where you might get some retired people coming in and doing things. Has that ever been further discussed, or?
It has not.
Okay, and maybe it's not worth it, but. Okay. The other one was the Stebner Road. I was just wondering how that public meeting went on Stebner Road. And I know David's not here. Was he the only one there, or were you there?
Both myself and Director Krieger were there. It was awesome. It's always awesome to talk about potential road assessments with folks. They were really excited. It was actually a really great meeting because Stedman Road has some differences and there's some different opportunities to move it forward. And the discussion was super civil and super upbeat about the possibilities both of doing and not doing the project, doing it differently with relationships to Block Bridge, making sure it gets done quickly in 28 because of the bridge outage, making sure that there's maybe a temporary fix versus a long-term fix, because there was some really good debate, and that's part of what we wanted to see in that was where did some meaningful number of the residents fall. And like a lot of our projects, there was all the board. There were folks who were absolutely for it, felt like the personal road assessments were appropriate and aligned to that. Other folks who said we can't get the road fast enough, but we have to pay for it ourselves. So some of that regular discussion and a meaningful amount who said, hey, there's how this decision gets made should at least factor in the removal of Block Bridge as part of the equation. Maybe that's why you don't do it, maybe that's why you do it. All of those were kind of good debate pieces. So it was really good meeting.
All right, and since we got the date of our work session figured out, do we have a HEDA meeting this Thursday? Cancel, that's what I thought. Okay, good.
All right, good business. Great.
It's the end of my list.
That's enough. Andy, anything?
No, nothing tonight.
Brian?
Love going after John. I did one question for Paul. Was the water down, the interruption on Thompson Road planned? No, okay.
Troubles with the tap, when we tapped that for that new line.
I figured as much. I had several people call me and complain that they weren't given notice. I'm like,
But
it
it
was
was
planned.
100% emergency, usually that's not a thing.
Okay.
But yeah, we had troubles with the tap.
I will let them know. That's it.
Joe?
No, you guys did a great job of covering them already.
Eric, anything?
No, thank you.
Nothing additional.
Kevin? Brandon, anything? Paul?
Mayor, that's one thing you asked about annually is road striping. And that'll be happening in the next 3 weeks. The county, we co-op with the county on that. And the company just stated to me over the weekend that they're here in town starting today in the Duluth area. So over the next 3 weeks, they're figured to be done doing that. And then on top of that, we started chlorinating roads Friday/today. In between raindrops and rainstorms here, but this week, a good majority of them should be chlorinated.
Actually saw the trucks on for
Okay.
starting.
How about that work, crack sealing that we were doing this summer, when's that?
I haven't heard a schedule. That's Farner. Again, that's a co-op with St. Louis County. It's Farner Brothers that are doing that. As soon as I know more, usually I give it a couple of weeks, heads up, give or take, but that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
Zach?
No, sir.
Trish?
Yeah, a couple things. One thing is I mentioned to the mayor in passing that I've signed the city up for a duct drain, and I will be rolling out that information a little bit more as soon as I can get some flyers, but it's basically you can help clean out the drain that you choose, and you can even give it a name on the website. And then the other thing is I'll be working the block party at the Y tomorrow if anybody needs an alternative dinner plan.
I have nothing.
One thing I was going to say is that next week is the League of Minnesota Cities Conference. I'll be attending, and Andy is attending that as well. So,
There is a ribbon cutting on Friday at 11 at the new Cirrus facility, built by the Davidson dealer. And I'll be there.
Next Friday?
That's right.
Next Friday.
26th.
Yeah.
other than that, that's the end of our work. We've got about an hour to kill, so go home for lunch or dinner if you want, and we'll be back at 6:30.
I'll look under this.